I feel like I need two people for every pencil because one of you can write and the other one can erase, right? Like, that's so problematic in trying to grow a business, right? Or people say, well, I'm a this. I'm like, what does that mean, you're a this? Like, what? Like, well, I don't understand a this.
What if this?
Yeah. It's like, how do you get promoted if you can only do one thing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't
Better be a
understand.
really sharp knife.
Right. So what I try to do for myself is...
AI with Alec. We got Greg Boone in the house. This has been a long time coming, man.
Yes, it has.
Long time coming. I got my little cheat sheet of notes. Let's do this.
All right. I'm ready to rock.
All right. The future of work in your mind, where is all of this headed? Where we are right now, 18 months from now, how are we going to be interacting with AI systems for the average, quote unquote, knowledge worker?
For the average knowledge worker, I think, I really think there's going to be this evolution that happens. Like right now, my team here at Walk West, we're using it on a very kind of independent level, right? And so we have our own set of tools. I got my own 10 to 30.
Claudebot, obviously.
Right. Absolutely. No idea.
What's it called? Moltbot?
Moltbot, right? 'Cause it makes a lot of sense.
The lobster
right?
thing.
Yeah. And so, but what I think what's going to end up happening is, you know, we're going to move, I expect over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to move from folks using it independently with a small subset of tools to groups and teams using it in a more collaborative way to ultimately what I would envision is kind of this almost like think of it like a matrix management situation where all of these tools are talking to one another and then you and I are going to have these dynamic experiences based on how we want to engage with the tool. So I can envision we're sitting in a boardroom, we're having a conversation and, you know, the AI knows that I like to hear things, it knows that I like to see graphs, it knows that you like funny cartoons or sports. I don't know that about you, but I'm simply saying.
I'm okay with cartoon. I love sports.
But could you imagine that because these tools can be very hyper personalized, you can now meet people wherever they want to be, whatever they want, however they want to learn, however they want to engage. And that's the thing I always try to explain to folks. That's the beauty of a lot of these tools. Now think of it in a way that now we are managing the tools or the collaboration of the tools versus creating every damn spreadsheet or every graphic, right? The thing I try to tell people and I love the most about using these tools is there's no more of this what I call executive vision charades. You know, when you're trying to explain a concept and it's like, oh, it sounds like it's 2 words, and then 6 months later somebody's like, nah, that's not it. Let's do it again. I was like, now screw it, man. I'm just gonna vibe this out for you so you can see at least 80% of the way of what I'm thinking. It could be completely wrong, but at least you can visualize it and we can look at it together and say, yeah, you're an idiot, Greg, right? Versus like going down this rabbit hole. So I do think it's going to radically change how we engage with one another, right? And again, meet us where we want to be.
I love that answer. And one thing that my viewers always know I tend to say is like, it is very clear when you're talking to someone who's got their hands in the dirt and obviously is using a lot of different stuff and has been always. And one of the things I want to give you and your team a bunch of credit for, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about it, is I remember when you and I started to get to know each other, you were telling me about all the cool different ways that you were encouraging your people to compete and win prizes and do all sorts of cool stuff to incentivize, to make it fun and not terrifying, because here comes the AI machines. And could you tell us a little bit about, like, culturally, how have you guys been able to operationalize some of this stuff in like a practical day-to-day way? Because I know everybody loves to talk about it, but I don't think there are many people like you that are really doing it and getting it done. So I'd love to hear a little bit more tactically. How do you help your people not be terrified by this stuff, embrace it, and not feel like it's a lot of work, if it makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's a point, like when we started on this journey, so every single employee at Walk West has at least one Gen AI certification. Nice. I have 35 Gen AI certifications. I just got 2 more a week ago.
Enough. Why don't you have 42?
You're right. You know, we got to set goals, right? 2026, right? And but what I always tell folks, whether I'm talking to executives or if I'm talking to a team, I said, if you want people to truly adopt AI or really adopt any type of new technology, I've been in emerging technology for the last 20 years, right? So I'm always trying to stay ahead of the curve. But I tell people you got to do three things. You got to make it personal, you got to make it fun, and you got to make it safe, right? So we gave people a 90-day window. We gave them a budget to go get whatever tool they wanted to get certified. I didn't give a shit what tool they got certified in. What I was trying to get across to them is, how do I make it personal for them so they can have their own aha moments, their own unlocks, right? And then I said, I don't care how you're using it, right? If you're trying to use it to create a script for a podcast episode with folks in our content studio, or if you're on the design team and you wanted to use Midjourney and learn a lot more about the creative aspects of it, what I was trying to get across for them is say, look, if I can increase their quality of work, I know that will increase their quality of life, and they'll want to stay engaged with this. Because this always, you know firsthand, I use AI, you probably use AI both professionally and personally, right? And so when I talk to executives, I say, look, if you want people to embrace this, you have to first make it personal for them. Why do they care, right? And so when I talk to enterprises or mid-market or even smaller companies that are struggling with the adoption, I always tell them, I said, look, this is the first technology I've ever come across where it affects every single human on the planet, which means it affects every single employee in your organization. So when you're talking about how much productive you want to be as a company next year and how you want to hit these goals, all they hear is AI is going to replace me. You have not even tried to figure out where they are in the story arc. So now you have 90% of your organization rowing against you, when historically, when you're doing digital transformation, you only had to worry about one or two people in IT potentially sabotaging you, or one or two people in this executive team. Now you got 90% of the people who's like, no, I ain't doing that. Like, it's not going to replace me. And so once the team starts to understand how it helped them, again, have a greater quality of work, they were like, okay, I get it now. I'm all in on this, right? And they don't really see a path in going back. They can't imagine working without it now. And so that's what you have to do. Personal, fun, and safe, man.
All right. So you touched on something there that I don't think is talked about nearly as much as it should be. And you got a lot of firsthand experience with it. So here we go. I remember someone once told me, they say, hey, you want to know what a culture of a business actually is? It's what happens when the boss and somebody else leave the conference room or the office. And it's the things that happen and how they happen in that environment, right? And so I think that you nailed it. I think there are a lot of people in lots of different offices who are literally thinking, so-and-so wants to embrace AI, and this AI initiative is just the beginning of the end to just take out my function, my role, and so on and so forth. And so for those leaders that are either not aware that that's going on, or maybe they are aware, but they don't want to talk about it, they don't know what to do, do you have any tips? Do you have any observations of, like, how do you address that and help people have some psychological safety around how to start stepping into this stuff? Because like you said, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you would never go back, There was the moment when Cloudflare was down a few months back. And it was down from like 6:30 to like 9:30 Eastern time. It's a bad time.
My team was coming in doing wellness checks on me, and they were like, "Is Greg going to be okay?"
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
I was like, I would keep coming out of office. I was like, Gamma's down too. GenSpark's down. Everything that sits on AI.
We got it, Greg. We know.
Right. And then I started to go down this path of trying to I literally was trying to mess around with Google Slides. And I was like, what am I doing? I was like, all right, I'm going to go do something else. And I talked to a few other colleagues. They were like,
play some sports.
I mean, literally.
Touch some grass.
my co-host and co-trainer, Erica, she said, yeah, I'm going to go fold some clothes. So I'm going home.
Do something.
We're going to do something because it's just not productive, right? But you said the right word. I'll take it back to the psychological safety. The reason I say personal, fun, and safe, right? The safe part is just as critical. They need to understand that there can be failures, right? That it's going to be okay. They're not going to get it, correct immediately. The other thing that I did, and I didn't really touch on, was, and you were talking about, you can tell the culture when the boss is not there, is that 90-day period. See, I was showing them what I was doing for 6 months prior to that 90-day period, right? I was trying to lead by example and show them all these things. But during that 90-day period, I delegated that to my next line of direct reports. I didn't even get involved with the 90-day. I didn't want them to feel like I was looking over their shoulder or that I was checking their work. I wanted them to have the independence. I wanted the organic nature of it. And then once you start to see the Slack channels light up, you start seeing people showing different articles, different tools, right? You start seeing people talking about, oh man, did you try this or you try that? That was the biggest smile I ever had on my face because I didn't even have to be involved. It organically started to work. But it started with me leaning in from the top and saying, I'm using it. It's okay if you guys use it.
Nice. I love that. And you show, you don't tell, right? Which is a big deal. All right. So let's move towards some examples. We both love go-to-market and hunting and sales and marketing and all that good stuff. So one of the things we kind of touched on before we jumped on air here is this notion of AI's role within the SDR and BDR and sales space. And so for those that maybe aren't as familiar, like just unpack your thoughts and what you find interesting in this area of AI enablement within the BDR, SDR, and kind of sales space.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity in general on the go-to-market side of the house. We use it quite a bit from things like automating workflows around presentations, proposals. Obviously, a lot of people do it for note-taking, but then translating that into, okay, how do I go from the note-taking to the deep research on who this client or prospect is, what is their industry looking like, the market intelligence, packaging it in a way that my team can consume it. I do quirky things like use Suno to make a song about whatever the thing is. Again, I'm trying to show people there's different ways that you can learn and absorb this information, right? There's just an abundance of different ways that you can use a broad range of data enrichment tools and things like that. And then I have this this kind of weird view, I would say, on the AI SDR side of the house.
Weird,
right?
spicy, that's what we're here for.
Look, here's the thing. Like,
contrarian, go.
I love the idea of having AI go make calls for me, handle a prospecting conversation, qualifying, right? Because I do think that the old way that we've done SDR and BDR and have 19 hoops for the client to jump through, you're going to talk to this junior person to qualify you to see if you actually got enough money or to waste their time, blah, 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 whatever. Now I'm going to hand you off to a manager, then they're going to get to your director. I'm like, man, that's a terrible experience. I get that, right? And so I love AI for that use case. What I'm not so bullish on right now is this whole the anthropomorphism of creating okay, you brought my grandma back to life to now sell me a new CRM. Cool. Like, there's nothing weird about this at all.
Oh, whoa.
Right, but it's
What's
like,
up, Grandma? Can we talk about other things too? Or
yeah,
just the sass?
like why does it need to look like a human right now? I know that I'm talking to a machine, right? There's a little bit of glitch here and there, which creates that uncanny valley. Why are you introducing this friction? Right now, I get there's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of data that's gone into this, and there are a lot of folks that I respect that are doing some great work. But I'm like, come on, man, do we really got to jump? We got to jump that far already? They just learned how to use AI to help with their email. Now you're just going to put this random person in front of them to sell them this thing.
I know it's a robot. Just have it be a robot,
Like, come on, man,
Jets
we're good with
stuff.
robots right now.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's the part where I don't quite understand. Like, I understand we will get there. What I don't understand is this really what people are asking for? Is like are you not able to sell this with or qualify this without the person looking like a human, or at least make it a duck or something? Right, something, right? And so, but I also get and I understand why, right? There's this the idea of, again, making it hyper-personalized where, Amanda Colo, she used to be the co-founder of Sixth Sense, and I think she has a company, One Mind, respect the hell out of what she's doing and what that group is doing and her vision for the idea of like having basically a personalized SDR, right? So if you want this person to look this way, talk this way, you want them to be punchy, do you want them to be straightforward? I get all of that, right? And I'm not diminishing that. I'm like, but I do think there's levels to this, right? And like for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna opt out of the fake looking thing for right now, right? And then more people come along.
It's jobs to be done, right? So like, how does the job need to get done in the way that's mutually beneficial for both the prospect who has very limited time, who maybe does or doesn't want to see grandma, right? Or Donald Duck, or, if you put a USC Trojan in front of me, I'm going to be all excited to talk to it. But if you put, that other school in LA, I'm like, you just lost me completely.
You just introduced so much friction. And that's the part where I'm like, I don't understand. Why are you doing that right now? I also get that in many instances, a lot of these products, they create the optionality of it. But some of them have gone all in on just the video SDR, right? So I do think there's some stair-stepping. I think the experience in general, I know that wasn't really the question, but you're moving. I always tell people, I said the greatest thing that, ChatGPT did or OpenAI did was make the AI look like Google search. Then I followed that up with, and the worst thing that OpenAI ever did was make it look like Google search, right? Because now people treat it like Google search, right? And so now you go from a text box interface to somebody that looks like my grandma.
That's a big jump.
I'm like, come on, man. Let's stair step this thing a little bit.
It's a big jump. I don't know why I'm going there, but I'm going to go there, right? Which is, I think about BDRs and SDRs today, and they're great, right? And they come up through the ranks and they do that work, and then eventually, they step into the areas. And one thing that I think we all can generally agree upon is that there are areas of work that we historically, when we came up, we got to do that work, and that helped us develop a certain skill set that we could then build upon, which is a foundation, and so on and so forth. And so there are some that are concerned that some of this AI stuff in those areas is hollowing out the ability for a strategic business development and sales leader to eventually become that, because they don't get to do the things that AI can now do as well, if not better. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that. So if you're a young guy or gal coming into their first job or what have you, and you want to get into sales, what role do you think would make sense for them in light of where this is all headed with SDRs and BDRs that are AI enabled?
Here's what I say about that. Like, I would say theoretically that was how folks came up. In reality, there was a lot of bad managers that treated interns like they weren't teaching them the craft. They were teaching them to do every piece of grunt work that they did not want to do.
1,000%.
Right. And so if we're saying
I've been there,
that going to go get the coffee or going to the printer,
that's important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay. So what I was saying to that is, like, you and I were likely at some point in our careers blessed enough to actually have mentors and leaders that actually let us do work. So in 1998, I was a software intern down the road here in Durham at IBM. And I got to be in an actual office with other people that let me write actual code. Right. IBM invested in me. I always tell folks in the education system, I say, I didn't need 4 years of Java. I learned C++, and then IBM gave me a 1-week accelerated Java training class for 40 hours. And then I was writing code.
Yeah, good to go.
Right. I was writing code for WebSphere a long time ago. Right. And so what I would say to that is, now you have these tools where you can still mentor these folks and actually get more value out of the junior rankings than you were able to get out of them historically, right? And so now what I would say, we had an intern here, true story, young man just graduated high school, hadn't started college yet. I met him, he was doing a robotics project, and he was just so happened they were sponsoring something at this NC Tech leadership event in Pinehurst last year that I was speaking at. And we hired the young man, shout out Brandon Cameron. And
crushed it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and
robotics.
So now he's starting at UNC Charlotte in computer science, right? He would blaze through so much work we would give him because he was
He's
AI
like, can I have
native.
some more?
And we were like
whoa.
We're like,
whoa.
So we're out there talking about, so this idea was like, oh, well, we need to teach him. He was teaching us, right? And I wrote a post about that, and I was like, what people don't understand, we learned so much from having this young person in. And what my mom always taught me that you have to learn from every moment, every interaction from every person. I tell people, from the janitor to the chairman, right? You should be learning from everyone, right? And so for me, it's like, use these tools to give you ways to figure out how you can skill these folks up. But never forget that you are also learning in that moment. You are learning how to be a better manager. You're learning how to be a better teammate. Right. And there's so much more. And I'll tie this back into AI in a little bit here, because those managerial skills are a great unlock. Right. And so for me, it's like, use these to figure out what are the things that you need to be doing. And sorry to go on a rant here.
No,
like when
good.
you bring up interns, right? One of the other things I say all the time is, and I get frustrated with, I was like, I want people to stop making the analogy that AI is a smart intern. Right, I want them to stop doing it. And the reason why I want them to stop doing it is because when you think intern, you've already boxed yourself in and pigeonholed yourself into what an intern can do. I don't know an intern that can go do, create a McKinsey level marketing intelligence report and state of the union or state of the technology type of engagement, and then turn that into a web application and a website, and then go make a commercial with VO3 or Sora 2, and then. Right? So when we keep saying that it's just like this, or it's a really cool tool or a really smart tool, intern, you're now putting this box around it, right? And I think that is one of the challenges that people are facing right now. They have no frame of reference or understanding of what can be done. So for me, I take the position of it can do every fucking thing ever. And then I work back from there, right? Because that allows my mindset to be different and to shift into a mode of like, no, I'm not going to call this an intern. No, I'm not going to treat this like search, right? That's a pet peeve of mine too. It's like, oh, when you're AI search, I was like, searching using AI is like 1/100th of what I do with it. I instruct. I am telling the thing to go build something amazing is what I'm doing.
It's a system.
It is a system. I think of it almost like an IDE for business folks, right? It's like my own integrated.
Here comes co-work. Right?
Exactly.
Which is why the whole wheels just came off. Airplane taking off.
Exactly. But imagine, though, that you haven't been learning and understanding. So the folks that have been doing this and building these skills, like think of it, we've effectively been interns for AI for the last 3 years. Like you and I have been interning with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, all, name your foundational model. So we've gone through our own internship over the last 3 years.
It's been great.
Right. And now I got, I'm ready to get promoted to co-work, right?
Let me tell you, you're going to be like,
I know. I told you off camera, I was like, I have my own, we were joking about how these things don't fail gracefully. Sometimes I remember I was using GenSpark and I was using, I've done this with Claude and other things. I was using Lovell. I was working on something. And it's like, I don't mind paying for more credits, but I shouldn't be figuring out that you either the token, the context window is either run out or I need more tokens. Like there has to be some way that you inform me of this and not just
take my credit card and go to the bar.
It's just like it's sitting there. It won't load anything. I don't know what just happened, right? And so, we'll get there though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to ask you a spicy question. I think you know what I would say, but you get to say whatever you want, as always. So it sounds like there's a lot of people out there that don't really understand how incredibly productive and amazing an intern can be, let alone any other human, whatever you want to describe, entry level, et cetera, if and when said human comes in and, lets it rip using these tools, technologies, and systems. And why is there such a disconnect on that generally?
I think it goes back to what I was saying about the greatest thing that ChatGPT ever did was make it look like Google search. So many of the folks that I've done training for teams, for groups, for companies, and we ask at the beginning, right? We always tell people we'll move you from AI anxious to curious to serious, right? I trademarked AI serious, and then my co-trainer Erica, she said, well, there has to be something between curious and serious. So she came up with AI confident, right?
Nice
and so
one,
we basically
Erica.
move folks to AI confident, and we'll ask people like, hey, are you anxious? Are you curious? 80-something% of the folks are like, oh, I use AI every day, right? And then we start training them and we start teaching them how to reduce hallucination. They're like, I want to take that back. Like when I said that I use AI, what I had meant to say was, I use it to craft emails or to summarize things. I did not know I can create an entire web application. I did not know that I could now, bring to life all these things I've been dreaming about for the last 10 years, right? So part of the disconnect is the level, where are they on that spectrum? Right, because I used to always debate with folks like for the last 2 years when I see these reports and say, 78% of companies say that their folks are using AI. I'm like, yeah, but to what level are you using it? Right? If you're not using it to 10x yourself, then you're not using it. It's not like you go around and tell people I use Google to go browse things. Like why would you say that? Right?
Not
okay.
anymore.
Right? You don't say that, right? And so the disconnect is how people are actually using it and what they can, assume its capabilities to be. It's the old Henry Ford, scenario, right? There was no frame of reference. So the old, I don't know if it's an urban legend or if he actually said it, but the idea of asking, what would you want? And they would say a faster horse because they had no frame of reference what a car was. Like, you want to get in that thing, there's fire in it. Like, no, I'm good, man. Right? But that's how people look at these things. They don't really understand what they can do. The other part of the disconnect, again, is whenever I'm talking to folks, whenever I'm on stage, one of the first things I always start with is this Upton Sinclair quote, right? And it's from 1934, and I always tell people I'm not well-read, so I'm not even trying to pretend to be, but I saw this online a while back, and I was like, that hits the nail on the head, which is the quote goes, it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. right? And it's not about ignorance. It's about, future shock or loss aversion, right? Our emotional identities are tied to our historical kind of processes, our historical titles, our historical business models, right? And I get it, right? We create these analogs, because we want to hold on to this past because we don't really know what our role is in the future. Like, I understand all of that. But by doing that, now we see this intern come in. Now we see this operational person come in. And we are not allowing ourselves to abstract out their capabilities to work with the machine, right, now versus in the past. So, because in the past, my degree's in computer science, right? So yes, I know how to write code, right? I don't want or need to write code anymore, right? I can understand it. But I think Sam Altman said was the last year that it's the year of the idea guy or gal, right? And so what people have to understand is there's so much more value out of these people in your organization that have always had these ideas and these dreams. They just couldn't bring it to life, or they couldn't articulate it in a certain way, right? And sorry to be long-winded about it, but I'm passionate about this stuff because what I've seen is I have people that are in a multitude of different roles now in the company that are bringing ideas to the table. You would have never thought, right? Because they couldn't articulate it and they couldn't map it out in a way that we would be able to consume because they didn't have, quote, those skills before.
So sometimes during these podcasts, someone will say something and in my head, there's a little bell that goes bing, right? And I know that what you just said is going to be at least in the top 3, if not top 2 of how I'm going to summarize this. But one thing you just said, and maybe I'm, using your idea a little bit differently, but I think what you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, is that organizations have so much more potential that you don't even realize until you start to create this environment and this culture of humble confidence, psychological safety, show them, don't tell them, from the top down, bottom up, et cetera, and then just light it up, right? Is that kind of...
That's 100% correct, right? Because we've built a whole education system and a work culture where it's so siloed and highly specialized from every single thing that you do. And I've said this to my team for years, not just in the age of AI. And I would tell teams all the time, I said, I feel like I need 2 people for every pencil because one of you can write and the other one can erase, right? Like, that's so problematic in trying to grow a business. Right? Or people say, well, I'm a this. I'm like, what does that mean? You're a this. Like, what? Like, I don't understand a this.
What if this?
Yeah. It's like, how do you get promoted if you can only do one thing?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't
Better be a
understand.
really sharp knife.
Right. And so what I try to do for myself is remove those barriers, right? Because what we were really saying is, I only know how to use this type of tool in this process. It's not that they didn't have any business context. It's not that they didn't have any dreams or any ideas that we could make a new product or service or we can provide better quality or greater value to our client. It's that they were told that to get ahead, you need to do this one thing really well. Right. Now we're in this Renaissance age of AI, whether, I was doing stuff with MIT exec ed, and Dr. Westerman would say this, or Dr. Kuchik at UNC Charlotte in their AI and computer science. They would all agree that we're in this kind of generalist and people need to have a broader set of skills. Right. So the people that are going to get ahead have a broader set of skills and they know how to wield these tools. Not one or the other. Right. And so what I try to explain to folks is you never know those pockets of innovation, you never know where they come from. A lot of folks, whether it's MIT or Harvard, would say a lot of innovation comes from the middle of the company, not from the top. And a lot of times it's from the bottom up, right? We talk about the AI native intern that came in. He showed us different ways. Like, we were like, yeah, this should take you a month. He's like, done. Like, hey, man.
He's like 4 hours.
It's like... It's like, surely it can't be great quality. Yep, great quality too.
It's actually phenomenal quality.
Right. It was like, okay, right?
Like, whoa.
So we were having a hard time feeding the beast, right? And like it. Feeding the machine.
Yeah.
And so like this whole, in early last year, man, the number of people that would say, hey, my son or daughter is going to Duke or MIT and this and that, and they're in computer science. I told them they should get out of it. I said, no, don't do that. Hey, slow down.
Let's not get crazy.
Right. But I do say that people do need to have a broader kind of spectrum on what they can do, the soft skills. We don't even call them soft skills, and we call them survival skills, right? The folks that can actually communicate, that can better understand business context. For years, I think you and I off camera at one point talked about the forward deployed engineers and some of these things, right? And I used to have like field engineers, I would call them, where we would work with clients for years. And one of the biggest points of feedback that I would get is our clients would come back and they say, "You're good. Your guys are, your people are technically sound, but they don't understand what we're trying to accomplish."
The business stuff.
They didn't understand. They understood how to write beautiful code and solve the problem that was put in front of them, but without business context. And so now I think the people that are going to get ahead have a broader range of business context. They can understand the business, the operational side, some of the technical side to the level that they need to. They don't need to know how to go trace code. I had to learn when there was no IDE, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. All right. So let me double click into this because I think this is I love this conversation. It's going in a lot of different directions, and they're all interconnected. But I think this is interesting in this context, which is, so I've heard a lot of people say that in order to embrace AI-enabled systems, AI infrastructure, et cetera, they would agree 1,000% with everything you said around this idea that it's horizontal, it's vertical, it's everything, right? Because anyone can use this in their functional role and so on and so forth. And therefore, I think the $64 million question starts to step into is, how do people think about narrowing their focus in an area that's their circle of competence, where they can get extraordinarily good at, 10x better at that thing that they're kind of uniquely good at. But simultaneously, to your point as well, how do they increase their horizontal or diversify those skill sets and become more of a generalist so that they can operate and function in a way that enables an organization to maintain its advantages with scale, right? More people obviously working together can create a lot of leverage. Do you think that you're going to have to recreate workflows and operating models where you're going to have smaller bite-sized teams that come together and attack problems and opportunities in a cross-functional way? Do you think the traditional, organizational structure model that we all just kind of take for granted because it's been the way it's been for the last 25, 50 years is just going to sustain and evolve and, kind of click through it? Like, I know it's like an abstract term.
Well, what I'll say is I learned a lot from a lot of people, but you taught me something that we just, we kind of backed into last year. I remember when you were on my podcast and Erica is our chief people officer, and she and I work together. She calls herself the human and I'm the machine, right? When we go out and we do a lot of the training. And then you looked at us and you said, "Oh, like Moderna." And we were both clueless as to what you were talking about, right?
I do remember that.
Yeah, you were like, "Oh, Moderna."
Tracy Franklin, rock and roll,
exactly,
yeah.
Right. And you were like, "Oh yeah, they combined their IT and HR department and then put the head of HR over it." I saw someone just yesterday reference it, all right, on LinkedIn. And so this was I don't know when it was, last May. It was the late spring when we were talking about it. I've seen other people on stage now in the last couple of months, talk about this. And so the point of it is they had to blow up the org, right? Most orgs are built on the whole siloed kind of functionality that I was describing before, right? The 2 people for every 1 pencil. And so I can't see a world in which you go forward with that same structure. I don't know how that would work, right? Especially at the enterprise level, right? And I would imagine that whether it's directly AI or indirectly AI, that is also part of what's happening with some of the layoffs, because the layoffs are not happening at just one level, right? What they're clearing out entire ranks in certain areas, entire groups, right? Because once people realize how to use these tools, it is going to reshape the business culture and environment, right? And so now going back to how do you leverage your domain expertise? The thing I say all the time, right? And it's a worn out analogy I use, but I say, look, if you give me 4 ingredients to make a meal, it's going to be okay. If you give the same 4 ingredients to Bobby Flay, it's going to be amazing. And what I try to explain to people, your domain expertise, even if you're a more junior person, you still have some, cone of genius or some area that you can really focus on, right? And then what I do is I start from my own domain expertise when I use AI. And then on the edges, I use it to learn about how do I bleed in, not just learn those domains, learn who in my organization is most likely to be able to understand and have these set of skills. Who else should I be relying on for this, and this, right? To give me some ideas. And then how can I engage with them in some way that meets them where they are? use, whether it's terminology, whether it's using different form factors, like, AI is beautiful in a multimodal way, right? Again, some people I try to get through them with the song. Some people I try to get through with the video. Sometimes it's a presentation that they may need, maybe a briefing doc, right? It may be an actual website, but you are getting promoted. You could do these things. Scroll here, right? So you're trying to figure out how you engage with folks. And then I've learned that I'm a very auditory learner. Right. So I'll take a lot of things and I'll use something like Notebook LM and it's like, all right, now create a podcast. I want to listen to the information. Then I listen to everything at 2x speed so I don't know what real humans sound like. Right. There's so many folks that listen to their podcast and then someone would show me a video of them, like they were talking about something like, man, is he okay? It's like,
how much do they drink?
or someone would get in my car and they'll listen to I'm listening to like 20 VC podcasts or something. And they're like, man, what is these chipmunks? And I was like, nah, man, this is how I learn. Right. But because what people also don't understand is that, we actually slow down to type, we slow down to talk, we can actually learn much faster. And I always tell people, I said, I've learned more in the last 6 months than I've learned in the last 5 years, right? I get all the brain rot and all the things but that is a choice people are making, right? I'm choosing to learn a lot more. And so what I would say is when you look at someone's domain expertise or look at their qualities they provide, they shouldn't be defined by some historical process or they know how to use that tools. Like, a lot of people can learn to use tools, right? What is the business context? What is the communication skills that they have, right? What is their ability to assimilate and work well with others? I always tell people, I was like, man, I ain't hiring the smartest person in the room. If you can't talk to another human, I can't hire you, right? Because I want to be able to work with people and have fun and strategize and all those things.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. All right, final question. And then, of course, if there's anything else you want to put on the table, please do. But final question would be, for those that are listening, to someone with your background, with your experience and your exposure and your hands in the dirt, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would recommend that they either think about or do to really take that next step in their AI journey and become more AI native generally?
So I always get this question and I always tell folks, I'm tired of hearing people say, "Oh, just go be curious, just go be curious and play around with that."
Like, cool. What else?
Yeah. and the analogy I always say afterwards, I said, I have young kids. I said that's like me teaching them about fire by throwing matches and gasoline on the floor and say, "Go nuts." They're either going to burn themselves or do nothing,
or burn your house down.
Right. But that's what happens in these organizations, right? They either burn the company down, right, have a PR nightmare, or they do nothing. And so what I tell people, it's like, go get some professional training, some certifications. You ain't got to have 35 like me, right? The reason why I do it is because I'm actually trying to get more versed in different roles inside of organizations. So my latest one was AI for data analytics. I'm trying to understand, how does that whole industry transform? How do we provide greater value? What is the next leap? And just so happened, a week later, I saw there was, I think Ethan Malik put out something about Claude, like crushing like Excel, like being able to do all these things, even better than Copilot, which is a Microsoft product.
Yeah,
right?
This is all 10, 15 days ago. This is the whole world, AI Twitter just blew up on it. It's unbelievable.
Right. And so what I keep trying to explain to folks, the naysayers, I'm like, go back to like the Doug McMillan, CEO of Walmart. I know we talked about this last year, but it's like, he said, we're not going to hire people for 3 years. Right. I mean, not 3 months, not 3 quarters, for the next 3 years. And he said, if there is a role on this planet that AI does not impact, I have not found it yet. Right. And so to bring it back, what I try to tell people is go get an actual certification. There are going to be a lot of people that raise their hand and say, I use AI. How do you discern who knows what if they got no formal training? When people start to put now ChatGPT and all these other things are now the new Microsoft Word on someone's resume. Like, I know Word and Excel, right? Like, what does that mean exactly?
I'm very functional in these areas.
Right. I'm fluent at these. Right. And I'm like, look, man, you need to go get certified, and then you need to go, you need to build in public. You need to actually build things. So like creators for the last like 10 or 15 years start having their own portfolios online. You have like folks in the web world, or you have developers, like this is what I have on GitHub and this and that. These folks have to learn how to showcase themselves. What I tell people all the time, and I remember being on stage in Chicago last year for American Marketing Association. And I tell people, I was like, look, on one side of the fence, if you lean into AI, you'll likely make more money and have job security. On the other side, if you don't lean into it, you likely won't have a job. So I'm not really sure what the debate is, right? Like that tsunami hit, in November of 2022 with ChatGPT launching, right? I get the people that run for the hills. I get the weirdos like you and I that are trying to, ride the wave. What I don't understand is all those people that are standing on the shore just looking at the wave, getting ready to crush them.
And there are people that do that.
There's a lot of people.
We've seen that.
We didn't get a chance to talk about it just yet, but, there's an idea of like invisible unemployment, which it sounds scary. It is a little scary. It goes back to my whole comment about the Walmart not hiring for the next 3 years. There's two main components to that I try to tell. I always try to tell my team, I said, look, I owe it to you all to be trained and learn what the AI economy and the AI skill set requires. Whether you stay here for the next 3 days or for the next 3 years, that's up to you. But I owe it to you as a leader to make sure that you have the skills to be successful, because this stuff is coming, right? Regardless of what people will say or think about it. And then you see the layoffs here and there. But it's not just about the layoffs. It's the lack of additional hiring. When a company that's Fortune 1, that Walmart says they're not hiring for 3 years, that means there's a big group of people that historically would have been hired next year, the year after. There's no job, right? That's one aspect of invisible unemployment. Then on the other side is there's always a natural 5 to 10% attrition in any healthy business year over year. The difference is they ain't gonna backfill that 5 to 10%. That's invisible unemployment. Those people they're not going to just fill those seats again. And so as that happens, that doesn't show up in layoff, headlines. You're not going to say, company XYZ is still not hiring. That's not going to be a headline, right? And so that's why I would say, I got that from Jason Lemkin and from the 20 VC podcast. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Hit that nail on the head. And so when you start to add those factors in, man, I'm just like, look, you got to get out there and learn. You got to go get someone that actually knows. Man, there's so many AI Uber drivers out there, right, that are just saying, like, oh, yeah, I'm teaching people. I'm like, you don't even understand why. You don't understand cosine similarity. You don't understand why vector spaces or why these things, how to reduce the hallucinations. There's no framework. You're just telling people to go walk in the library and say, give me a book.
Just any old book.
Give me a book. Let me a book on cars. And then I'm going to go post on LinkedIn. It's like, man, you can't believe this AI is so dumb. It gave me this kind of book. And I always tell people, I'm like, well, there's the concept of Polanyi's paradox, which effectively says, as humans, we know more than we can say, right? So all the tacit knowledge, like I always, I try to explain to my kids how to ride a bike. That was a perfect example. And I was like, man, just get on the thing, pedal real fast, don't fall, right? Not the million things that I learned through life and growing up, right? And so, but you got to get someone that actually understands the technology so then that you can figure out how to actually use it for your domain, for your ideas, for your passions. So
I love that. And I'm gonna play it back so that folks can really hear this one loud and clear, is that you got to learn from folks that know what they're doing, that have hands in the dirt, and you got to do the work and build in public as you're doing the work comfortably, but building things using the systems so that you develop that native understanding that cannot be, understood by reading a book.
100%.
All right. Well, there you go. Thanks for coming, Greg.
You said that in a much more concise way.
Well,
I appreciate
get to
that.
ask the question. I just listen. It's easy. My job's so easy. You just ask the questions. Just listen.
Yeah,
but yeah, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too, buddy. Thank you.
Next time.